Good morning. Welcome to Southeastern 16's football reaction and look ahead to today's Notre Dame Georgia game, which was supposed to be played yesterday. Let's start by saying our prayers go out to the city of New Orleans, to the people affected by the awful, awful event of, I guess, New Year's Day morning. Talked to my buddy Anthony Dasher at UGA Sports. He was down there 3 blocks from it. I think when it happened, thank God he and his folks at UGA Sports are okay. We have Texas beating Arizona State in a wild college football playoff quarterfinal game. Blake Lovell, Happy New Year to you. Happy New Year to the folks watching us. Let's get into football. Let's start with Texas and Arizona State. What a crazy game that was yesterday. Texas led by 18 with under 7 minutes to play, blew the lead, had a shot at a field goal, couldn't hit it, went to overtime, was that close to losing, and then Quinn Ewers hits two huge back-to-back plays, and here we are with Texas in the semis.
Yeah, I mean, Arizona State scored with 6:31 left in the fourth quarter. It was still 24-8 at that point, and that's when they scored 2-point conversion. And they score again a minute later, 2-point conversion, and like the game flipped in a minute and a half. Like it was just that quick. And of course, then when you have all the momentum like that, right? Just give me the ball, let's go score in overtime. And that's what Arizona State did right off the bat. And you're thinking, oh my goodness, is this really about to happen? Right in a span of about 30 minutes, overall, the game just completely flipped. But then, as you said, Texas found a way to win this game. But that's one of the wildest games I've seen this year. Like, I mean, that was just something. And so, I mean, games like that, like they're going to be defined by all the big plays, and obviously, both the quarterbacks gave you some big plays in this game, and yeah, I mean, it's just like there were so many interesting things that unfolded for the game to get to that point. And I know there were a lot of people who were just like, oh boy. And we can have the bigger discussion on our confidence in Texas going into the next matchup they're about to have based on how they finished this game. But yeah, that was wild.
This is the world we live in where one play can define you for better or worse. If Matthew Golden doesn't catch that ball from Quinn Ewers in the end zone, what is the narrative around Texas this morning?
Oh, you know what the narrative would be around Texas. You
I
know what this
softball
thing would look like. Oh my goodness. Yeah, this would. I can't even. Well, actually, I can't imagine. I was gonna say I can't imagine, but trust me, I can. What that would look like had they had lost this game, because yeah, it would have just been a complete. I mean, what else do you say? Like it just kind of would have been a meltdown, and that was kind of the scenario you got yourself in to even get to that point. And I mean, you look at the guy on the opposite side, right, and you just see all these different plays he's making, and you're sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? Like, how can we stop this team? And again, that's like when things just got rolling there. You could tell, like, obviously it just flipped there towards the end of the fourth quarter, just in terms of, just the game-changing plays and that kind of stuff to allow Arizona State to tie it up. But, yeah, like this was one where right off the bat, Texas is up, and you're thinking, okay, yeah, this could be one of those games, right, where it just, 17-3 at halftime. Texas gets off to a good start. They're up, 14-3, I guess, 5, 6, 7 minutes into the game, something like that. And yeah, it just completely flipped, and that's kind of the nature of college football sometimes. Like when you get in these kind of games, all you need is a big play, and completely changes the momentum. That's what happened, and yeah, the narrative surrounding Texas football would be much different this morning. But now you fight for another game, and what another game that will be when we talk about
it. Was that not just the quintessential Texas football 2024 experience into one game? Because Texas is up in the blink of an eye. What was it? 14-0, 14-3, whatever it was. Basically, they run 6 offensive snaps and have 2 touchdowns because one of them was a punt return. And yet you look up in the second half, and Arizona State's almost double up on them in yards, even though it's down double digits. Cam Scattaboo, we'll talk about him in a minute. That's a whole other conversation. And then, I mean, they literally, you're sitting there watching it thinking Arizona State's winning this game. He makes that terrific throw to Golden in double coverage. It's Gunnar Helm next offensive snap. In special teams, holy cow, that's a whole other discussion. Which that was like that was a bad point for Texas all year with special teams. But for like half the game, they're leading because of special teams. Then they almost lose it because of special teams. I mean, it was just you watch. I think the reason I say the quintessential Texas game, because I feel like that was emblematic of what they are. I watch them at sometimes and I go, holy cow, their talent is as good as anybody's in the country. I don't know how you beat them. I don't know how they ever lose. And then you watch them, and for about 2/3 of yesterday, they were pretty underwhelming, to be honest.
Well, and we said too, like, I know you guys mentioned it kind of in the preview and that stuff, but like, this was like a big kind of prove it type game, because you're thinking all season long, like the discussion on Texas, or towards the end of the season, we're having the discussion about who deserves to be in the playoff and all this other stuff. Well, a lot of people bringing up Texas. They're like, well, what has Texas done, in terms of their complete body of work and everything like that to this point? I mean, they played the schedule in front of them, right? I mean, it is what it is, but a lot of people were kind of poking holes in that. And we talked about what would the discussion be today had they have lost this game. Well, add that onto it, because it would have been, all right, here's a team who had a big lead, just completely blew it towards the end, and now let's go back and support that argument of, hey, maybe they never belonged in the playoff or something like this, right? Which, again, that's a little extreme in my opinion. But, that was part of the discussion. And so, yeah, like you said, I mean, it was like all phases of the game. You just sort of look at it and you said it's like a Texas-type game where you just had all these things that, I don't know, if you played that exact same sequence out however many times, right? Is that going to happen a lot? Maybe not. But at the same time, I mean, it did, and give Texas credit. They found a way to win the game, because that is one of those where when you see that momentum swing, we've seen it so many times in these games, however, over the years. It's just like when you see that momentum swing, you're like, uh-oh, like it's over now. But, even though Arizona State made all the plays to get it to overtime and, took the lead right off the bat, getting the score on the first possession, Texas the team that walks out victorious and now sets up the matchup with Ohio State. So,
Blake, when Arizona State takes the lead in overtime, how would you have handicapped the odds that Texas was going to win?
Well, I'd say if you got in on some live betting at our friends at Bet Online, you probably would have got some decent odds on the Texas Longhorns. And I see in the chat right now, Nathan having a discussion on what he should do with his own particular bet. Let me pull it up here. It's a great segue. Nathan says that he put 15 on a college football playoff parlay, and he needs Georgia to win for the last leg. Should he take his $35 cash out or try for the full payout? So that's what he's debating right now. And I know Nathan did it with our friends at Bet Online. Andrew's telling him, don't cash out. Put the hedge bet on Notre Dame, which I think is a decent suggestion there. So anyways, let's talk about Bet Online, because Nathan's over there betting parlays. Everybody's betting parlays. Bet Online, the world's most trusted betting platform, and your number one source for online betting. Earliest odds, in-game live betting. I told you, in-game live betting, Chris. We were all in on it yesterday. Texas, Arizona State. Who's going to win? People were placing bets all the time as it got into overtime, I'm sure. Provides you with all the action and ability to watch the games as they happen. Largest selection of odds on everything for football, the NBA, college basketball, NHL, UFC. It's all there. Head to Bet Online today. Don't forget to use that promo code BELIEVE, BLEAV, on your welcome bonus on your first deposit. Bet Online. The game starts here.
Quinn Ewers' legacy. I mean, he was a big topic coming into yesterday. The alleged $6 million offer to play elsewhere, for whatever that's worth. Texas was claiming that was a planted distraction by somebody to keep them from their goals.
I love this stuff. I love this era. Planted distractions with NIL offers and all this other stuff. Like, count me in on this stuff. Like, this is just, it's tremendous. Like, give me
Hey,
more of this, right?
at least Quinn Ewers didn't opt out for the second half.
Wow.
Unlike
That's
quarterbacks elsewhere.
That's another discussion, but it is an interesting point you bring up. Like, there's going to be way more of this. We know this. Like, all the creative ways that people are coming up with in the NIL era, like, just to, bowl season itself, we know is chaos these days. We had Shane Beamer and Brett Bielema going at it. We've had all sorts of stuff going on, but I love the planted NIL $6 million distractions. Those are my favorite.
Yeah.
So.
They should just make it like the car wash that I go to where I want to like manually wash my car. You get out, you feed the meter with your debit card or whatever. You load it up for 10 minutes. The clock starts counting down on you. Hey, if you want to wash your car a little bit more, you need to throw some more quarters into this or swipe your debit card again. Just do that for games. Like, do that for bowl games. Just, hey, the meter's running down on Quinn Ewers. Swipe your cards for his NIL and let's go. If there's enough left, he'll finish out the game.
It's like Dave and Buster's. It's like Dave and Buster's with college athletes is what it is. So if you want to go play the basketball game or if you want to go drive or whatever other games they got there now, you got to go reload the card. So, yeah.
And in the meantime, we got Cam Scataboo over on the other sideline barfing his guts out. Tapping out for a play or two, coming back in, throwing touchdown passes, catching 60-yard touchdowns, running over people.
Listen, whatever that dude got paid this year wasn't enough, all right? So, I mean, my goodness. Like, just that's like one of those guys that, if you're playing the new EA Sports College Football 25 game and you're trying to break records with that guy. You're trying to break records for how many times he touches the ball, how many carries, like all this stuff is what you're going for because why would you not? And I mean, again, like look at all the just the big moments in this game for him. And we knew you guys talked about it going in. If this was going to be a game that Arizona State was going to have a chance to win, which ultimately they wound up being in that position, like it was all going to be about how much can he do in terms of what can he do against this Texas defense, and can he be able to, again, make these kind of plays, put up the kind of numbers that he put up, right? And it's exactly what he did. And, I mean, that sometimes you just need a guy like that can sort of put you up there and say, hey, let's go. And that's kind of what he did in this game. And so that was always going to be the difference, I thought, coming into this one was just, how does Texas sort of scheme against what they need to do to stop him? And, winds up, look at the numbers, right? Obviously, he throws the touchdown pass. He's got 30 carries, 143 yards, 2 touchdowns there, 8 receptions, 99 yards. Of course, he had the one for, 61, 62.
Yeah.
Just ridiculous. Yeah. So.
Yeah, coincidentally, we had a small house full of 10 to 12-year-olds yesterday playing NCAA football, and that was one of the teams picked.
Oh yeah,
probably because of him. But I want to switch back to Texas. But I want to ask you. This has been bugging me. I think I came up with my answer of who. Like when I watch him run, it reminds me of somebody. I was texting a couple of friends of mine. Like, who does he remind you of? And I got different answers. I just want to ask you, like, when you watch him play, does he remind you of anybody you've seen before?
There's someone I'm picturing, but I can't figure out who it is.
See, that's where I was too.
There's another guy though that I'm like, is he? All right, let me hear the names, and I'm going to tell you if one of them is, because one of mine is has graced the cover of Madden before. But
I asked my buddies, two buddies of mine that probably watch as much college ball as anybody I know. One of them said Ray Rice, which I thought was pretty good. John Riggins gets brought up a lot for obvious reasons. There's a couple of the one that was in the back of my head, and I would have to go back and watch him because memories. Another guy said Robert Newhouse that played for the Cowboys 70s, 80s. I think to me there's a little bit of Marion Barber III in him. You remember the way he ran? It's like he would just seek out contact. It's like I could go around you or I could run you over, and I always worried would that shorten his career. and it did. It may have shortened his life too, because he. I won't take that a somber turn, but he's no longer with us. But that like it was in the back of my head, like who is it that he reminds me of? And that's the name that I've been trying to think of that he reminded me of a little bit.
All right, well, hold on. I'm going to give you a visual image of who I think he reminded me of, and this was the name I had, and I was curious if you were going to throw it in there. All right, let me see if I can load it up here. So I don't know why there was one that I just could not picture, but this was one that immediately came to mind for me, and I don't know. I mean, this may be accurate, it may not, but here we go. This guy right here.
yeah, that would work. I remember him.
Give me a little Peyton Hillis. All right, a little bit of that in there. I feel like that was the first name that was the first one that popped to my mind. But I don't know.
He was the third best running back at Arkansas when he was there.
It was nuts what they had.
Well, it was like the Auburn thing a few years before that when they had Brown and oh gosh, who was the guy that played for the Giants? That transferred from Southern Illinois and went to Auburn. You know who I'm talking about. Big
I know you're
dude.
talking about.
Like 260, 70 pounds. And they had oh good Lord. They had Ronnie Brown.
You're gonna throw Brandon Jacobs. Is that hold on?
Brandon Jacobs is the guy.
Yeah,
I could
Brandon
not think
Jacobs.
of his name.
Yeah,
And who was the other guy?
about.
Cadillac Williams.
Yeah.
Like you'll never have that again in this era of college football.
No, that was nuts. So,
but yeah, that's not a bad comp.
I'll go with him. All right, so thoughts on this? I'm trying to find the spread. The spread's got to be out there, right, for this Texas Ohio State game. I don't know why I can't find it. Let me see if I can hear. Here's one.
I'm gonna guess. Oh boy, that's got to be close to a pick 'em, don't you think? Because I think on a neutral field, Ohio State is better. But it's not going to be on a neutral field, I don't think.
4.5, Ohio State.
Okay. Wow.
What it opened as. FanDuel, yeah. So, our friends at BetOnline have it too. I'm sure I can find it. But yeah, that's not shocking to me. I mean, I knew Ohio State would be favored after what they did to Oregon, which I mean, I can't blame anybody for making Ohio State the favorite based on that, but I thought the number would be, I don't know. I thought it could even be higher. I was wondering if it would be higher than that, honestly.
Well, I think geography's got to play in there, doesn't it?
I would think so.
How do you explain the Michigan game?
Oh, okay. Hold on a second. Actually, at BetOnline, it's up to 6 now. So that's what I thought. I thought it would move up a bit. Ohio State's a 6-point favorite now. Over under 53. So, yeah. Interesting.
They looked to me. I think those are the two most talented teams in the country. Ohio State's just getting more out of its talent right now than Texas is, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's just you just see what Ohio State just did in that game. I mean, that was an incredible performance. And so I know you guys will talk about it in the prediction video coming up here, in the next couple of days. But I just think it's. Boy, yeah, there are some things that just with the way Ohio State's playing right now, and everybody still wants to bring up the Michigan game and all that. Like, we're way past that now. Like, look what they did to Tennessee. Look what they just did to Oregon. Like, they've turned a corner here, and they're figuring some things out. And so, yeah, I'm curious about that matchup. And again, I'm not surprised that number went up. If it started at 4.5, now it's up to 6. That doesn't shock me at all. That's about what I figured. But oh yeah, Big Baller Brett bring this up too. We're talking about the way. How does he run? Who does he remind you of? Stone Cold Steve Austin in The Longest Yard. That's another good comp. Stone Cold just he was running like nobody's business in The Longest Yard remake. So there you go.
Now I will say this: Texas's pass defense is elite.
Mm-hmm.
So that I'm not going to say it can negate a lot of what Ohio State does. Like, it'll eliminate, I guess, is the word. But I think that is going to be very interesting.
Yeah.
Because they got some dudes who can get open. And let's not forget, in all the Ewers talk, what was the play that sealed the game yesterday? It was the Makuba pick at the end.
Yeah. I'll pull up some of the numbers here because I think it's interesting to look at go ahead and look at just a little bit of these matchup type things. Actually, we'll save that because I know we're going to quickly jump into the whole Georgia Notre Dame situation, and then we've got to hop off for a few other things. But yeah, again, guys, if you're joining in, obviously we'll have the prediction video coming up here in the next couple of days for Texas, Ohio State, and then we'll wait and see on if any videos will be needed for Georgia, who will obviously play Penn State if they were to beat Notre Dame. But all right, Chris. So as it stands right now, we know that the Georgia Notre Dame game is set for 3 p.m. Central today. And I guess if you're looking at this, we always just bring up the numbers. Notre Dame is, I think, a favored by a point right now at this point. And as we've seen in terms of the games, these teams that have been the favorites, we've seen what they've done to this point. And so, again, I don't know how you guys have done the preview on the game. Things have certainly changed since then in terms of just the situation that we're looking at here. And again, as it stands right now, they are going to play today at 3. Don't know if that changes or anything, but that's where it sits at this moment.
Honest to God, I was having a tough time with this game anyway. I mean, flip a coin. I watched Notre Dame play against Indiana. I just thought on the lines of scrimmage they were really, really good. Defense is elite. The backup quarterback thing for Georgia, I know Gunnar Stockton is talented. I'm sorry if you know how that's going to play out with a guy with that little experience in big games. And I get that he led them to a win over Texas. But, they didn't have to score a lot of points to win that ball game. I just don't know what to make of him playing. I know that, on the other hand, they got here with Carson Beck and their passing game not clicking. The rest of the team was good enough anyway. I just watched the way and when we did our picks, I watched the way Notre Dame played that game, and I thought that feels like a bad matchup for Georgia. I called a buddy of mine who's really dialed into the SEC and a lot of programs. I just said, what do you think is going to happen? He said, I think Georgia's going to kill him. I was like, really? And I guess maybe part of his reasoning would have been like, Georgia's been in this spot a lot of times. Kirby Smart's got the whole disrespect thing going for him that he's played that a million times. They're really, really, really good in this spot. And then here's another thing. This game is in New Orleans. Georgia could bring 80,000 people there, whatever that holds if it wanted to, probably. Looking on ESPN this morning, tickets as low as $37. Now, I don't know if that was just everybody get the heck out of New Orleans after yesterday, what that's about.
There's got to be something like that, I think. Yeah.
I'm just saying, there is weirdness all over the place with this game, and I'm just going to watch with curiosity like the rest of you today. I have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just the whole situation. I don't – it's just hard to – yeah, it's hard to really even figure out exactly how, the game's going to play out just beyond, the X's and O's matchup. Like, just, again, it's just so much different than going into a normal game. Like, this is no longer a normal game. Just, based on everything that's happened in New Orleans. But I think just like you said, I think you get some really strong opinions both ways on this. Like, there are some people who think Georgia's just going to completely manhandle Notre Dame. But then you look at, again, like, what does Vegas know, right? Like, Notre Dame's a favorite by a point. Now, there are some interesting, like, historical things here too. Like, Chris, you know what Notre Dame is against the spread this season? I know our guy Brian Edwards knows this, and he would tell us if he was on here, but do you know what they are?
Probably pretty good because they did pretty well in the power rankings this year, week to week. The Northern Illinois game aside, I think they kind of flipped the switch from there.
11-2 against the spread this season is Notre Dame. That is tremendous. Georgia, meanwhile, 4-9. So I think that is going to play a factor in terms of that number swing a little bit. And keep in mind too, the last two times these two teams have played, 2019, it was 23-17. 2017, it was 2019. So, like, they play close games, and that also factors in in terms of if you're looking for projections. Every season's different. The landscape of college football was different, 5 years ago, 7 years ago, whatever, 8 years ago. But I think that's something that always plays into this kind of, these things too, when you're trying just to use all those thousands of possible scenarios for how a game like this plays out. And then it is just, I think, looking at Notre Dame's numbers, which I think you can certainly say, hey, the numbers were in this conference versus Georgia's numbers in this conference. Like, yeah, they can look a little bit better. But look, I think this is one where if you're Georgia, it comes down, it's very simple, right? You're going to win this game with your defense, and you need just enough, I think, from your offense. I think the Gunnar Stockton thing is just going to be interesting because I can't say with 100% confidence I think he's going to come out and throw 4 touchdown passes or anything in this game, right? Like, I'm not – yeah, he's a great player, but I'm not completely sold on them just coming out and, going up and down the field and just scoring left and right. I don't know. Like, I'm not sure against Notre Dame, defensively. I don't know. So, I think stylistically that's what I'm most interested in with this one. Like, again, I think if Georgia's going to win, the defense is going to dictate that. But you could say the same thing about Notre Dame. So, I mean, what the over-under in this game is, I think 45.5, 45, something like that. So, I would fully expect this to be one of those, lower scoring type games just based on kind of what you think both teams will try to do in this one maybe. So.
Yeah, so if it's 1 and if the over-under is 45, that's a 23-22 Notre Dame game.
Yeah.
That's what Vegas thinks this is going to be. Well, here's a stat for you. Riley Leonard, 943 career passes, Gunnar Stockton 51.
Yeah.
And that's what worries me. Like, I think if it's Carson Beck, I'm picking Georgia. And I'm not saying I'm feeling great about it, but I'm okay with it. I feel like this is one of these games, like, whatever you pick, you're like, well, of course I should have picked the other thing. And if it's Georgia wins and you pick Notre Dame, you're going, well, of course I should not have doubted Kirby Smart in this spot. When's the last time Notre Dame won a game of this type of magnitude? It was all right there before us. If Notre Dame wins this game, it's going to be, well, if you watched them play Indiana until the last couple of minutes when Indiana got a couple of garbage time touchdowns, that was a dominant performance. They had a quarterback who'd been on that stage before. And, of course, that was the way it was going to happen. That is exactly what we're looking at.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, too, I think this would be obviously much different, right, if this was like a game-time decision for Carson Beck. But the fact is, like, they've known, for multiple weeks now that he was not going to play. And so that's at least, I know Kirby Smart's talked about that. That's given them the situation where they've been able to put Gunnar Stockton out there against, their defense, their first-team defense, was pretty dang good, as we know, and give him, those reps in practice. And he's talked about the importance of that and everything. And it's also on the other side, right? If you're Marcus Freeman, it's like, hey, you've got a pretty limited sample size to work with in terms of how you think you're going to be able to defend Georgia with him under center. And so, that can also change a little thing, because how does Georgia? Did they make significant changes to their game plan? I don't think so. But, he's a different quarterback. So all those things play into it. And, yeah, it's a fascinating one again. And obviously, you wish it wasn't played in the backdrop of everything that's happened, the past few days. But, yeah, it's just this should be a really good game.
The stat line here screams that they are going to look for him to be a game manager. You look at the Texas line, and again, Texas's pass defense statistically was maybe the best in the country. He goes 12 of 16 for 72 yards, so that's just under 4 yards an attempt, which is awful, which is also about what Texas gave up, pretty close to that most of the year. No touchdowns, 1 pick. He did win the game. That's the most important thing. Tennessee Tech, 10 for 12, 90 yards. UMass, 3 or 4 for 45. I mean, he's not throwing a touchdown pass this season. That feels like a big ask in this spot.
Yeah, that's why I think this could be one of those, like, would it stun anybody if this was just like, if this was 13-10 or something, like, that kind of game? I wouldn't be shocked by that. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. So, again, if you want to check out the prediction video Chris and Chase did, you can find that here on the channel. Did that, last week. So keep that in mind as you're watching in the context of everything. But yeah, you can check that out. And obviously, we'll have previews and everything coming up for the Texas-Ohio State game. And yeah, a lot more stuff here, transfer stuff as well. We'll have here on the channel, football-wise. And obviously, you can check out all of our basketball stuff too. We're doing a big SEC tip-off stream on Friday night to get you ready for Saturday in SEC basketball, the start of conference play, SEC baseball stuff in the works. We got it all here, Chris.
Yeah, looking forward to watching the game today. Looking forward to a big few months of basketball ahead. Man, we got some plans for that in the works. Hope you're here for it. Hit the subscribe button. Enable your notifications if you want to know when we do these things. For Blake Lovell, I'm Chris Lee, wishing you a happy new year. God bless you all. You've been watching Southeastern 16, presented by BetOnline.